Welcome back to another excitingly Ryan-less episode of Delayed Offside. As always, the three fun hosts are here to bring you the content that you wish. Your Sans Leaf episode. What am I doing right here? Is you can't see it, but there's a kitty right there.
Sure, man.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, but yeah. So it still doesn't work. Tim, show yourself. Anyways, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. He'll put his head through the rest of the thing.
We'll edit it in post. I'll put it like
exactly.
a cat. It'll be fine.
You put a what?
Garfield. Yeah, cat in there. Yeah, Garfield.
Oh, yeah. Nice. That'd be good. He's going to push his face against my screen. He likes plastic. But anyways, since we're without Ryan, we can actually say what we want about the Leafs without having to hear him whine, complain, or moan. So what are your real thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leafs? Get it out there.
Engvall's a number one center. I don't know what everyone's arguing about. He shouldn't be on the bench. He needs to be up there and out there.
Well, I think Kerfoot should get way more ice time.
I agree.
And I think, honestly, if I had to choose, I would get rid of the veterans, sit them, and put Kerfoot out there because I think youth trumps experience any day.
Oh, yeah. And David Rittich needs to be the starter coming into the playoffs. Like, he has 30 minutes of playoff experience last year. That's enough to lead him to the final. So, David Rittich, he's your number one starter. Anyone else is just making a mistake.
Yeah, so if you want to stick around for some more hot takes, some cattails, maybe like someone gets slapped in the face here from this thing, but who knows? Keep clicking, keep watching some Delayed Offside. That's kind of occurred this pandemic is there's a lot of talk about how every day feels like Groundhog Day. In other words, what I mean by that is every day is the same in some different form. It repeats. And I think with the NHL season, we've seen that in a couple of different examples. Toronto is playing Montreal and Ottawa. Vancouver's, got COVID and now they're playing like 20 games. This other team has got 6 games in a row in like a 7-day span. So there's a lot of repetition and that feeling like it's constantly repeating itself. But one of the other parts of repetition that's really occurred this year is the Calgary Flame playoff conversation. As Sunjay pointed out, 1 week we talk about how are they going to make the playoffs, to the next week talking about they're not going to make the playoffs, to they might have a chance to they don't have a chance again. So we're Groundhog Daying the Calgary Flames. So let's settle this again here once and for all. Sunjay.
Yes.
After the last game, after these last couple games.
Why do we always have to record after they lose to the Oilers?
We always record these during Oiler games. Like we never, Ryan's like, I can't do that. There's a Leafs game. That's right, Ryan. We know what you're like. But are you here? Are you ready to say, are you ready to put the nail in the coffin? What say you?
Yeah, no. You arrived at the dance with the girl and she left with another guy. You're sitting there all by yourself. It's game over, man. Like even if they win the rest of their games, I think Montreal just needs to win 2 games and it's over. So I'm officially calling it. It's tank season. Bring in the tanks. Louis Domingue, he's going to be the starting goalie. Gaudreau sit, Kachuk sit, Lindholm sit, Gio, rest for next year. Lucic, 30 minutes a night. Buddy Robinson, 30 minutes a night. Let's tank this thing up. Let's get a top 10 draft pick and let's do this thing right. Let's lose. Let's go 0 for the rest of the year.
I want to sidebar this with the point that Buddy Robinson sounds like a 1920s boxer.
Yeah.
Like if you walked by an old poster and it was like, tonight featuring Buddy Robinson versus, like you'd be like, oh, there's the guy to bet on. Yeah. I bet you he goes 10 rounds for 10 cents on that guy. Like, I mean, honestly, like every time I hear that name, I'm like, that is the best name for someone who was boxing like in the 1920s.
Just in old school sports too,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Buddy Robinson steps up to the plate.
Yes, that's right.
He makes the point. He's going, takes a swing. It's hit. It's going deep. Buddy Robinson. It's out of the park.
He's just got a name that fits itself to so much, and he's the fourth line, third line. What's he?
Fourth line, yeah, fourth line and taxi squad all year.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever. Him and Johnny are super buds, so. He actually hasn't been terrible.
Actually,
yeah, they're buddies.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Did your thing cut out? I didn't hear you there for a second. Sorry.
Oh, You could say they're buddies.
Oh, yes. No, I was like, I'm just like, it could have been my headphones, but whatever. No, so like the Calgary Flames, I think if we did our predictions, put your hand up if you predicted Calgary would not make the playoffs this year.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, see, I had them ahead of Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I had them third, I think. I think Sunjay, what did you have them? Do you remember?
Second.
And I think you must have had them third or fourth.
I had them
Adam?
third or fourth, and I had Montreal out.
So what went wrong here? Was it the competition? Was it just the start to the season? Was it the changes? Was it not enough changes? Where did this team change off? Because one of the things that's becoming, well, actually, I'll just say, let's go with that. Where do you think things went wrong here on this team? Because on paper, this is actually a really good looking lineup.
You know, it's very interesting because if you look at the team you mentioned on paper, you'd be like, yeah, this is a playoff team. But the way that they played this year, like not everybody, but a vast majority of players had career lows in terms of production. Like Matthew Tkachuk, this is his worst year as a pro. Sean Monahan, his worst year as a pro. So you look at that, that's like two of your leading scorers already having, terrible years for them. And that's a big hole to fill. And I also think that Jacob Markstrom was phenomenal to start the year, got injured. And I think it took him a little bit longer to get back to that all-star caliber performance. And he found it, the last 10 games, he's been lights out. He's been really good. But unfortunately, there's a large stretch there where, his numbers weren't that great and the team was struggling and he was struggling. And I think, they just ran out of runway. It's unfortunate because I would have loved to see him in the playoffs. Yeah, I just think that's what it was. But, I watch them all the time. So maybe I'm being a homer or something. But, like, what do you guys think? Because you've seen them at least every time they've played the Oilers. So outsider opinion, what do you guys think?
Well, it was tough at the beginning of the year. Like, it didn't seem like there was the urgency to or will to win even in those first even two lines. Like the only guy that would bring it every game was Matthew Tkachuk. And I don't know if that's like a not buying into the coaching or not wanting to play that system or just like not giving a complete shit about the season. Right. And then they get the coaching change and it's too little too late. Your big three didn't show up immediately. And unfortunately, halfway through the season, it just wasn't enough time. And by big three, I'm saying like Johnny and Monahan were not that like noticeable, at least in the Oilers games. Like you didn't notice them. And I know
Johnny was the best forward. Johnny and Lindholm, I think, were the two best forwards this year. But yeah, definitely Monahan. I don't know what it is with him because he had that really good season the year they finished first in the West. And then after that, he's just fallen off.
Let's not talk about that for a second because I think there's 2 points that really kind of stood out this season. 1, 2 years ago, Johnny Gaudreau was a 90-point player in the NHL. And last year, everyone was talking about what's going on with this guy because he was not producing at the same level. And thus started the rumors of, hey, maybe this guy wants out, maybe we want to change, etc. At the same time, Matthew Tkachuk seems to have lost a little bit of his vigor, for lack of a better term, after the Jake Muzzin incident, which is kind of an interesting incident. But there was a lot of talk that there was some, I think a lack of better terms, hurt feelings or like the feeling that his back was not being had by the rest of that team. And they had the feelings of, you can't keep putting us into a fight every night. And I have to wonder, like with those two players having those kind of instances occurring and that drop off and those changes, is Gaudreau a declining asset? And is Tkachuk and his relationship with the Flames changed or damaged here? And is it something that can get repaired and back to where it was?
It's interesting because I don't think Gaudreau is like a worn out asset at all. Like we watch him play. Like last night, he was fired up in the second period. He came out, he hit the crossbar with a really great shot. He scored on a rebound backhand. Like, he was flying. He's a good player. I don't think his stock has gone down. I don't think he gets as many good looks, and I don't think he plays with as many skilled players.
Yeah, I definitely think his contract's up next year and he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So I think Calgary's going to take a long look and see where they're at the trade deadline, because this is a player that makes less than $7 million a year. So, Calgary could eat some of that at the trade deadline. It won't be like a $10 million player that they're trying to move if they're out of the playoffs at that time. And they could get a king's ransom for this guy. Like, as you mentioned, 99 points 2 years ago. He finished fourth in Hart Trophy voting. So you could just see, like, when he's on, he's one of the best players in the world. So if you're a team like Philadelphia or New Jersey, one of the teams, from the East or Pittsburgh even, that think, hey, we can make a run with this guy, you could get multiple first-round picks and a prospect for this player. And if Calgary's out of the playoffs, absolutely, you got to look at moving him and talk to him and say, look, what's your interest here? Do you want to come to Calgary, next year? Or if not, we'll move on and we can get something for you. So I definitely think difficult conversations are going to be had if the season goes south next year like it did this year.
Right. So do they want to take that risk with, say, seeing someone go like Sam Bennett?
Yeah. I mean, at least they got 2 second-round picks, right? Like a second-round prospect and a second-round pick. If Seattle had just taken him in the expansion draft, they would have got nothing for him. So at least, it's better to get something for the guy than have him walk for nothing. Because if you let Gaudreau walk for nothing and you miss the playoffs, or you make the playoffs and you're out in 5 and he leaves in free agency, that is terrible asset management. And that can't happen because, that would set the franchise back, losing their top forward for nothing. Their most skilled forward for nothing.
Yeah. So let's make a weird point here. And this is one that's been brought up a lot by Sportsnet and some other people. I think Bob Stauffer put it up on the Oilers broadcast. The Calgary Flames would actually be 4th in the Pacific, 3rd or 4th in the Pacific. They would actually be a playoff team if they were in their original alignment here. And so I guess that begs the question, can you really make a lot of changes if, knowing next year, going back into the Pacific Division, that this team is going to be able to contend against teams like the Sharks, the Ducks, the Kings, and so forth? Because those are teams that they have to be ahead of, and they are more than likely, like, it's probably the Pacific is going to be the easiest division in the league next year. Mm-hmm. And that's great for the top teams because you're not just playing against those teams. But if you have a troubled year, you can still climb your way up into the playoffs. So should they, knowing that they're going into an easy division, really make a lot of changes? Or is this one of those things where it's like, we've seen enough of this 1 year in, 1 year out, 1 year in, 1 year out, where it hasn't really worked?
It's tough to say because, they would be in, but how would they fare against Vegas in the 7-game series? Who would be the number 1 seed, right? So if you look at how they've performed against Vegas since they've entered the league, I think they haven't even won a single game in Vegas. So the series would probably be pretty short. So, is your goal just to make it into the playoffs, maybe win a round in some miracle? Your goalie, Markstrom stands on his head, but then you're out in the second round? Or is your goal to win the Stanley Cup?
Well, the question I have is, I guess, if you look at it, No, I don't think I can ask the question. I kind of blanked out there for a second. But I do think when you have this team and you say, okay, I do actually remember what I was going to say. You have a coach who essentially signed on because they were a playoff team and because he thought they had a chance to make the cup. So if the faith is there at that level, can you really pull it? Like, Markstrom signed a contract saying, this is where I want to be. This is the team. We have a chance. Tanev, same thing. You have all these guys who are saying all in, maybe not showing it, but if that's the mentality, can you really go into a rebuild?
I mean,
difficult too.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a team like Colorado, they did it. I mean, not saying like it would be that easy, but they had a lot of pieces, but they weren't bringing it. I mean, they had McKinnon, they had Landeskog, they had Duchesne, they had, what's the other guy named? Rantanen. They had a ton of assets, and they just weren't performing, and they shipped out Duchesne and got a king's ransom for him, and they were able, now they're top 3 in the league, you could argue. So it could be a quick turnaround, but I understand what you're saying. Like, would Sutter buy into the tank or buy into like the bottoming out to get higher draft picks? And I don't think he will. Like, just thinking of his personality, I think he's going to put the best lineup that he can every game. And I don't think he's not the type that would be like, okay, let's call up the AHL players. Let's see what we got. Okay, let's play the third string goalie. And I don't think he will do that. So you're right. They might as well then, knowing that, maybe just go for it next year and see where they're at.
Well, since we're talking here now about playoffs and where things are going to go, one of the things we talked about last week was forward depth, who we thought had the best forward depth and who we thought had the worst forward depth. We're going to continue that discussion on here by going a little bit further down the lineup to the defensive pairings for different teams. So looking at the North Division, which teams do we figure has the best defensive depth and the weakest defensive depth? I'm sure we're all going to be the same on the weakest, but the strongest defensive, yes,
defensive
maybe,
depth.
Yeah, defensive depth. Who do we think has the strongest? Now, does everybody know who they want for this one? Adam, you do good if you ever read the document beforehand. You know what we were going to talk about in a given day. Like it takes 3 seconds.
Hey man, I went to Costco today, then I went to Save On Foods.
That's an issue, not an ish-us, right? Like,
you could have had talk the text and listened when you were driving to the document. I mean,
that's true too. You could have had someone read it to you.
Yeah. Okay, so who has the best defensive depth?
Let's do the best defensive depth first and why, and then we'll do the worst and why.
You know what? I'll go first. Why not? Because you know what? I'm going to pick the Edmonton Oilers having the best defensive depth. I'm going to tell you why. Because they have a plethora of defensive defensemen, as well as offensive defensemen and guys that are kind of two-way defensemen. You've got a shutdown defensive line in Larson and Kulikov, who have been playing pretty well together. Kulikov took a bit to fit in. There was one game ago, he had a couple turnovers. One led to a goal against, but he's been playing pretty damn well. And then you've got the depth with a number one pairing in Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie. They played really well. You've got that offensive defenseman in Tyson Barrie and a guy who really grinds and gets back and contributes both defensively and offensively in Darnell Nurse and brings some grit. Now, if something ever happened in that pairing, another guy that jumps into that pairing beautifully, maybe even better than Barrie, is Ethan Bear. Ethan Bear, being on the third pairing, has brought some stability, deeper in the defensive lineup, I guess. And, he's got some familiarity being paired with Caleb Jones because that's who he used to play with in Bakersfield. So those guys are learning the ropes. They're getting better. And then the depth past that is really good as well. You've got Chris Russell, who's a shot blocking, hard-nosed defender. You've got young Evan Bouchard, who when plays shows flashes of offensive brilliance and passing like vision that I haven't seen in a while in a defenseman in Edmonton. And we've got Legason, who's really stepped up this year when he's been in there this year. Their depth is incredible. And they pulled Broberg back from the was he in the K this year or a Swedish?
He's not going to play.
No, but he has playoff experience with the team from last year as well. So 19 years old, he isn't going to play, but he will be on the taxi squad. So I do think that they have the greatest defensive depth. And you know what? You've got guys coming back like Jesse Puljujärvi, who's
not defenseman.
No,
not defenseman.
No.
You just stick to the story.
Hey, fine.
No one's asking who's in goal for them. It's just
Right.
Well, Mike Smith
Okay,
is like
here's the deal. Mike
Yeah.
Smith, exactly. It is very much like having a third defenseman back there a lot of the time when the puck is dumped in.
According to our group chat, you are not a fan of him touching the puck. So
I am not.
Let's
I'm not.
start
There's
pretending.
so many times I'm like, oh my God, he's behind his net and there's like two flames in front of it. And I'm like, what's he?
Once
Like,
again,
let a player
that's
come
on.
back.
He's stopped the cycle. That's on the
He did.
forwards to get
Yeah.
open to him. So he's doing his job. But I do think you're right. But this year he's actually been way better with the puck. I can think of two big gaffes that he's made with it. So
Me too.
Sunjay, let's hear about you. Who you think's the top D in the league?
I'm going to go down to the East, and I'm going to say Toronto. They had a pretty decent decor, and they added.
Ryan, is that
Hold on,
you?
hold on. Yeah, I was
Did
gonna
you
say,
come in?
and
Ryan?
I'm not Sunjay at all. I'm Ryan.
Yeah, rip off the first
Scooby-Doo ending, folks.
It's just you've been sitting there in the same position. Your mouse have been like that terrible like fake thing they do when they put the mouth.
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
old Conan skit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, the Leafs had pretty decent defensive depth, and then they added, one of the most underrated defensemen in TJ Brody, and he's really good. And Mike Riley. They also have Bogosian, who just won the Stanley Cup. Jake Muzzin, I think, has a couple rings back there. So you look at their depth. They have veteran defensemen, and they also have really young guys like Riley that can really move, and Brody, who can really move. So to me, I think Toronto, and as well, if you look at their goaltending, they haven't had, the goaltending that some of the other teams like Edmonton has had. Fantastic goaltending. I don't know how from Mike Smith, but he's found the fountain of youth, and he's turned back the clock 10 years. But Toronto hasn't had that steady goaltending, and yet they've still been winning consistently. And I think the defense deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They've had a hell of a year. It's better than last year for sure. I will fully say that.
Baron.
I'm gonna go with the Montreal Canadiens, not because they're actually winning, but because I actually think that their defensive core is built for the playoffs. And I think as long as your team gets there, it's a different game. They're already allowed to kind of play a little bit dirtier with an edge. Like I think Shea Weber's a very dirty player, but not like in a what's the word, like a Matt Cook kind of dirty player, but a dirty player in the sense that he's hard, he's gritty, he gets away with a lot of little things and sometimes some very damn big things. And I do think the fact that he's on there, even though he's not doing as well now as he was at the start of the season, I think that that's going to probably benefit them in the playoffs. I like the rest of that. Like Petrie is a hell of a defenseman. He's really turned into a top defenseman. Early on, there was some talk that he should be Norris, but since the team kind of faltered, went to crap, that's conversation's gone away, and I think that's fair. But I do think they've gotten bigger. They have Edmondson. They're big. They're a mobile defenseman. You look at how well they've done against shutting down Connor McDavid. I think that should be something that gets a lot of attention when it comes to something like the playoffs. And I think that even though the regular season they haven't done as well, I do think that defense is going to cause some problems for whoever they play in the playoffs. So that's why I'm going to say that they're the best defense. Yeah. I know their games aren't great, but I think that goes to goaltending more than defense. So.
Well, and Romanov's really stepped up, and he took Mete's job, right?
Yes. Yeah. And Mete's, good for him. He seems to fit in well in Ottawa, so I'm glad somebody took him and go from there. What who do you think's the worst and why?
Winnipeg. I just don't think they're, they did have the strongest core a couple years ago. You had Trouba, you had Myers, you had Bufflin. They were really a strong core that made you pay, and that's gone. You've got guys like Morrissey and Pionk, yeah, who's actually played pretty well this year, but it hasn't been a mainstay defensive core that's going to help your team win in the long run. Think about how that team might have fared this year if it weren't for Hellebuck in net.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting points, which is a friend of mine who's a Jets fan says, I've never seen a defense that it was like a negative, that they actually worked against you in a game. And I think that's true. I do think like Morrissey needs more support. Pionk has been good. They pulled off, what's his name? Was it like one of their players that they had this year? It was Stanley. He kind of stepped in at first and things looked okay, but there just seems to be a lack of mobility, a lack of everything from this defense. They're not good at anything. And maybe it's the mix, maybe it's the pairs. I think they won the Trouba trade, to be honest with you. But I think beyond that, they haven't really filled the gaps that were created when they lost guys. Like, should they have kept Tyler Myers? Absolutely not. But when they lost Buffalo and Myers, all those guys, they have not actually done a proper job replacing them. And I think that's coming back to hurt for sure. So that's my vote as well.
Yeah, 3 for 3, Winnipeg. Everything you guys said and more. If it wasn't for Hellebuck, they wouldn't be in the playoffs right now. So. And their forwards are great, but their defense, that's their weakest spot. And, come playoff time, it'll bite them, whether it's Matthews or McDavid. One of those two players, they're going to play. So they
Yeah.
better buckle up because it's going to be a short series for them unless they figure it out.
One of the other big events to occur this week was that the Seattle Kraken officially became a 32nd team in the NHL. So welcome to the Seattle Kraken and their fan base.
Let's get cracking.
Yeah, exactly.
You stole my joke. I was just waiting.
So great logo. I think it's a great place to kind of set up another NHL franchise, and I do hope it has a lot of success, and I think it will, at least initially. The one thing that is going to be interesting is, will this team be able to put together a roster to be as effective as Vegas? Now, Vegas was a team no one expected to do well given the previous expansion history, was given a new set of rules, used it to their advantage, was able to pull some legitimate star players from teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, for example, the Florida Panthers, and so forth, and was able to get this team kind of galvanized and together, and are still essentially a threat. Like, their window opened immediately in the first year, and that really caught everybody off guard. So the Seattle Kraken are going to take part in this expansion draft, and the Athletic had a series essentially where they kind of broke down their predictions. So we're going to go over some of these predictions with you. And then just some thoughts on the team, if you think there's someone that they should take instead, if maybe, and we can maybe even do our own expansion draft one day. For the Winnipeg Jets, it's Mason Appleton. Yeah. For the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's Justin Hall. For the Vancouver Canucks, it's Cole Lind. For the Ottawa Senators, Nick Paul. From the Montreal Canadiens, Jake Allen. From the Edmonton Oilers, Caleb Jones. And dang it, I thought I had Calgary's on here, but I think that's the one I missed.
I think Calgary was Shillington.
That's right. Say this. Go ahead, say sorry.
From Calgary was Oliver Shillington, so that's who they had said.
Yeah. So looking at that, like, do we think that these are the players that are most likely to get taken from these teams? Do we think that this is going to be able to put together the roster that is going to be as competitive? Or is this going to be, Oliver Shillington? No, it says Oliver. How do you say that name?
Shillington. He's a Swedish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's the Shillington.
Swedish name. I see you. Yeah. I was like, is that how you pronounce that? Like, no wonder Don Cherry.
Like a K, and you're starting Chill.
Yeah. Like shh with a K.
It took
like
me so long to
the
understand.
Seattle Shacken. Is that what you call them? Like, that's tough.
Yeah.
But do you think that they're going to be able to compete in the same way Vegas is? Are they going to put forward a competitive team? And at the same time, what do you think of those picks, if those are indeed who they take?
It's about what you would expect in terms of picks. In terms of competing, like Vegas did, I don't see it. I see that as a one-off, and clubs learning from mistakes that they made and dealing with Vegas in expansion. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for Seattle to do the same thing and follow the same quick road that Vegas did.
Sunjay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't foresee them going to the Stanley Cup Finals, but you look at that Pacific Division that you mentioned earlier. California is a mess right now. Like, all three California teams, for the first time since I can remember, are objectively worse than the three Western Canadian teams. And then you got Arizona, Calgary, Vancouver in there, who could go anywhere. So I could see Seattle maybe sneaking in 4th seed in the Pacific if they do the 1-4 in the divisions. I could totally see that. The picks. Now, Calgary's interesting because they're going to protect 3 defensemen, and everyone's speculating, okay, you don't let Hannafin be exposed, you don't let Tanev be exposed, and you don't let Anderson be exposed. So you're exposing Mark Giordano. Is that a player that Seattle is going to say, you know what? This guy's played 1,000 games. He's been, in the NHL. Let's select him and make him our captain. Or is Calgary going to say, you know what? Here's a third. Don't take Giordano. Take anyone else, and maybe take Shillington. I think Shillington is a great pick for Seattle. He's a young player that, unfortunately, I don't think he's getting his fair shot in Calgary. I think, he should be out there playing instead of Nestorov. He's a younger player, but for whatever reason, he's been riding the pine, unfortunately, all year. I think he's only been in like a handful of games. So, he could, use a fresh start, and I would love to see it with Seattle. Another player is maybe Lucic. He's agreed to waive his no movement clause and be exposed, and would Seattle take a chance with him being from Vancouver area, local kid, bring him back? That could be another pick for them. But I think Shillington is probably who they're going to go with. And I think it's a great pick for them, and I hope he succeeds there, if that is who in fact they take.
Adam,
Yeah, I gave my opinion.
on your team?
Oh, on the Oilers, it's tough. You think they are like that's got to be who they target. The Oilers have the best depth at defense right now that they can pluck from, and I'm racking my brain unless you can get them to take like a Chris Russell or
Well, Chris Russell's resigned for expansion purposes because you have to have a veteran D-man, and right now he's the only one under contract for next year that they're not going to protect, right? So
yeah,
but that's fair.
so
Nugent Hopkins is a free agent. So does Edmonton protect him, or is he exposed? Like, in theory, could Seattle take Nuge and sign him and be like, have exclusive contract rates? Like, why wouldn't they give it a shot, right?
They could theoretically, if they don't protect them. Like, that's the thing. You can protect your UFAs if you want, or your RFAs for sure, but you can protect your UFAs. And if not, you can let them be drafted and then go from there. And right now, Nugent Hopkins doesn't have a contract. He's having, I would argue, one of his worst years as a player. He's getting better lately, but he's not been great this year. His numbers are pretty bad with McDavid, which is odd. So
it's hard to do.
It's a good point. But here's the truth. Like, honestly, if you're Seattle, if you take a bunch of these guys who are on low contracts, you could theoretically offer a lot of money to Nugent Hopkins and he becomes your first line, second line center.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good point.
Yeah. And also Larson's a free agent that they could take from Edmonton as well. So they have some options. There's a lot of free agents, right? Like,
yeah. It's interesting because you say, like, I think there's always hope that they take somebody else, but I think really at this stage, like, Legason was way far ahead of Jones at the start of the year. Now Jones is ahead of Legason. So it will be interesting to see. People probably want them to take Cassian, but that's unlikely to happen. But you never know either. Like, it really depends what they have planned. So it's just going to be interesting. What about Justin Hall for Toronto? Since that's we'll speak for Ryan Pilon because the rumors are Hall or Dermott. So where do you guys see that going?
I actually see them taking William Nylander.
That makes sense because the fans hate him there. So
yeah. It's about time he gets a star.
Yeah, the Sam Bennett deal, right? Two doubles, a double for Sam Bennett and a double for William.
For a point of game player, yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's interesting because, like, do they take Hall? Do they take a defenseman, or do they take someone with that veteran leadership? Do they look at Spezza after the year he's had in Toronto as well?
I think Spezza would retire if he got taken. I think he would just flat out say, you know what, I'm not moving across the continent to go play.
He already did that this year when he went on waivers.
Oh yeah, I said if anyone claims me, I'm retiring.
I do wonder if Florida, who they'll allow actually to go, because that's another one that could be interesting, especially if you said like Sam Bennett, you could lose him. They could lose Sam Bennett, but they have a lot of guys who are coming off the books this year too, I believe. Like Barkov's done this year, so he needs another contract. I don't think he's alone. I'm trying to think who else is in that list.
Oh, it's funny because you got to.
They say Radko Gudas, but if I was a player, I would probably take someone better than.
Well, you got to think that kind of bit Florida in the ass with the expansion draft with Vegas, right? Marshall,
for sure.
Riley Smith, like they played well in Vegas.
Yeah, a lot of teams. I think that's where it's going to be tough for. Like that's where I think it's going to be tough for the Kraken is. Everyone who got bit by the Vegas team will not fall for that again.
Yeah.
Like they were very good. Like there's rumors that they would call you every week being like, hey, I'm going to take this player. I'm going to take this player. And then you'd be like, oh, like stop freaking calling me. Like, look, we want you to leave him alone. Take this guy. And then you can leave him alone. But they'd be like, hey man, I'm taking that one from you. That's fine. You better get him a Vegas jersey. I'm going to send you a pamphlet with all the houses he can live in. Maybe like, dude, just please take this. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that Seattle's going to have that luck, which is, whatever. I hope they're good off the bat or at least competitive because you need a good start. I think that's the lesson from Vegas is a good start does a lot.
No, they're in the Pacific. Don't want them to be good. Nope.
Nashville's one of the best. I know what you mean, but Nashville's one of the best hockey markets now. And it's so great, but look how many years were wasted because they were given terrible guys. No offense to any original Nashville Predator players, specifically Stu Grimson, who we love.
I think expansion teams have to realize, look, we got to build fans. Like, we're not going to win a lot of games back then. And, like, they would try to be, like, defense first, like Nashville and Minnesota. Screw it, man. Just go all offense. Yeah, like, who's going to go to your games? If you're a fan of a new team, you'd rather lose 7-5 than win 1-0. So just go all offense if you're Seattle and just have some fun.
So one of the remarkable things that's occurred as of late has been some of the production in the North, despite people's feelings about the North as a division. McDavid is currently on a pace, what would have been 146-point pace in an 82-game season, which is the highest since 95-96 when Mario Lemieux had 161. He, I think, has 7 games to get
13 points.
13 points. Does McDavid get to 100 points? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely he does. He's had, out of his last 7 games, 6 of them have been 3-point games that he has gotten. There's absolutely no way he doesn't stop. And the thing is, they're going to be playing Vancouver, I believe, 5 times in a row here. And I think he may have his way with them.
Sunjay?
I'm always wrong, and I don't want to see him hit 100 points. Not that, nothing against him, but he plays for Edmonton, right? Like, come on. If this was Johnny Gaudreau, you wouldn't want him to hit 100 either. So I'm going to say...
He never has, so I don't have to worry about it.
99 was close enough. Okay, we'll just give him... He was a lost point in there somewhere. We should
once again, not 100.
So I'm gonna say yes. I think he will hit it, but I probably just jinxed it, and now he's gonna end with 99. So I'm sorry.
I bet you he gets like 105 now.
Yeah.
I was at the one game against Vancouver where he got 100 points a few years ago, and it was like he got his points and then they sat him. It was like, but it was sick. Like he just like flew off, scored his 2 goals, went to the bench. It was fantastic. Just some stats here. So this is from Bonks Mullet, which is a great Ottawa Senators fan account. And it said, and I think you had connection with them when you did the blood donation, Sunjay.
That's right. Yeah. Good account.
I said, didn't realize McDavid will be the 9th player to win the Art Ross 3 times. The first 3-timer since Yager, Crosby. The first 3-timer since Yager, and Crosby only has 2. So that's kind of crazy stat.
Wow.
Over the past 35 seasons, the other player in the NHL is having a career year and a hell of a year is Austin Matthews, who is scoring at a goal-a-game rate that is the highest since Lemieux's 87-88, or as closest to Lemieux's 87-88 year, but the highest since 95-96, which was also Lemieux. So...
he was the best since Mario Lemieux.
Yeah, he's the best since Mario Lemieux, years and numbers. So he's having like an amazing season. Now, originally there was a thought that he could get to 50 goals in 50 games, and they're like, if he does this, he gets the
scoring
heart the scoring title, but the heart no matter what, right? Like, and now they're like, well, now McDavid's closer to 100, that's potentially more important. But Matthews is probably unlikely to get his 50 goals now. But what do you say about his season? Like, has this been just an amazing clinic? Is he now the best goal scorer in the NHL, or does he still have to do something to prove it to people?
I would say now he is, not to discredit what Ovechkin's done, but Ovechkin's on kind of the downturn of his career. Whereas now, Matthews is the premier scorer of the league. But at the same time, Connor McDavid's 20 points ahead of the next person in line in terms of scoring. So, I mean, good luck, Matthews.
We're talking about goals here. Where's McDavid in goals? We gotta find.
Adam's a drifter. You're like, let's talk about
you know how I
he's
work.
like, love my sweaters, love these shoes. We gotta talk about.
Today we're gonna talk about Tommy Salo. Do you know who would score in Tommy Salo? Connor McDavid.
I will tell you that Connor McDavid has 29 goals.
Okay, that's Austin Matthews have.
Matthews has 38.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think he's catching Matthews.
I don't think he is either. But I do think he scores 100 points.
Yeah, like I think honestly, like watching Matthews from the start of the season, he has had such an extra step, like a new gear. He's found it, and that's great. And the truth is, he's probably just ratcheting up. Like, let's be honest. Like, if he takes a step back from where his pace is this year, people will be like, he's having a bad year. What's going on? Like the expectation now is heavy, but he's really lifted. Like that goal against Montreal Canadiens where he smacks the puck down, pulls it and shoots it. Like that release is ridiculous. I think he is having an outstanding season. And it's weird because it's like we're getting near the twilight of Crosby and Ovechkin, but like we almost have like two similar prototype players stepping into their place right off the bat here. So it's kind of nuts. I think he's probably the best goal scorer since Ovechkin, and maybe by the end we'll see what happens here.
Yeah. Well, if he can stay healthy, that's a huge thing, right? Ovi's been very healthy. That's helped him score goals. Whereas Matthews has been a bit of a Band-Aid over the past couple of years. And like, look, even this season, he had wrist issues, right?
Yes, he did. I can't wait to watch, like, imagine, I wish we would have like a Ryan reaction to as he listens to the pod, because he's like, Angle. Yeah. What are you trading that player for? He's so upset. Right off the bat, he's just going to be flipping out.
Okay, so this is a stat I saw by John Buccigross from ESPN that he tweeted out, and he said
about hockey. Wow.
Yeah, he said. So Matthews scored. This was yesterday or 1 day ago. So that was career goal 195 at age 23. And he said Ovechkin had 219 at the same age. You know, Matthews could get 200 this season, and he missed 38 games due to the pandemic. So, you know, right around the same age, they were pretty close to having the same amount of goals, and they're both September 17th birthdays. So pretty crazy to put it in perspective of how good he's doing, you know, historic sense.
This goes back to the similar point, but back to McDavid a little bit, which was his careers versus Crosby and how similar those two were at this game, because they just hit 400.
Yeah.
And I believe essentially Crosby had 207 goals while McDavid has 191. So he's ahead of him there. But for points, 556 for McDavid versus 554 for Crosby, 380 even strength points versus 323, and then 43 game-winning goals versus 25. Like, if you find different parts to it, but I mean, it's crazy how close those two are. Like,
yeah,
mind-blowingly. And that's kind of neat with the Matthews and the Ovechkin as well. That really is something that stands out.
Yeah, like for me, the thing that is unfortunate is that, you know, Crosby and Ovechkin played each other a ton. They played in the playoffs, you know, growing up every year. Unfortunately, McDavid and Matthews aren't in the same conference normally, this year an exception. So we're not going to see that head-to-head, you know, rivalry. And I think it'll take a little bit away from it if they had played, if, you know, Matthews was in Calgary, for example. God, that would be amazing. But think about how much bigger the rivalry would be between the two. You know, like they would be playing each other 8 times a year, playoffs probably. And I think it'll be a little bit diminished that, you know, he's in Toronto and McDavid's in Edmonton. So they'll play twice a year, but every game now will be Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. It'll be like a showcase.
Lemieux played Gretzky, and they were in different divisions. They weren't always playing all the time, at least not initially off the bat. And those games were rare, but they were also, I don't know.
Like can you point any like great Gretzky versus Lemieux moment?
No, not really.
But like Ovechkin, Crosby, you can be like, they got dueling hat tricks in the playoffs. This one, you know, they have like that rivalry. Whereas Lemieux, Gretzky, you'd be like.
But like McDavid's even killed the Matthews rivalry. He trained with him in the summer. Like there's no rivalry there. Like they're like, oh yeah, we get along. Like, oh, you don't think about? I really like him. He's a really great guy. It's like, sweet.
We're friends.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if this was you or if this was Pilon that wrote this, Sunjay. So you tell me if it's you or if it's him. Did you write in the thing?
It was probably me.
I said the thing with a truly great player like Gretzky and Mario. Was this you?
No, not me.
Okay,
no.
So this was Ryan.
It was me.
This is
you don't look at it.
This is our listener question, Ryan Pilon, because he's a listener now.
That's right. So the thing with the truly great players like Gretzky and Mario were that they are not just the best players in the world, but they were in a class unto themselves. I should have known you wouldn't use a word like unto. There was such a separation between them and the next best player. We haven't seen a player like that since Yager in the late 90s. Has McDavid established himself at that level of player? If you don't think that there is a ton of separation, who would you say is right up there with him?
Absolutely. He's created that separation. Look at the points race right now. It's ridiculous. He is a head above everyone else skill-wise. Like, watch him. he splits D constantly. Like it's scary watching him. And defenders look like they seize up when they see him coming. Like they tense up.
There was a point in last night's game where McDavid was coming down on Anderson, and it must have been the end of his shift, and McDavid just dumped it in.
Yeah,
Anderson, you could tell in my head, I was like, Anderson was probably like, thank God he dumped that one.
Yeah.
The sweat was terrific.
He's like, great again. Like, we really have to do this, but
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Adam. He is the best player in the world. In terms of the separation, there's some other pretty good players that we have right now, like McKinnon and Patrick Kane and Leon Draisaitl even on his team. For me, to him to get that separation, he's got to do it consistently. This year, without a doubt, he is head and shoulders above everyone else. But Yager, Gretzky, and Lemieux, they did it year after year after year. They were putting up 20 points above the next player. And I pulled a stat. I don't know, this stat. The one player's played a lot more games, but so since McDavid's entered the league 5 3/4 years ago, he has 556 points, which is number one. Number two has 527 points, and that's Patrick Kane. So about 29 points difference split between 6 years isn't a lot of separation. Now, Patrick Kane's played a lot more games during that time. He hasn't been as injured as McDavid, who lost some time, but still, 30 points over 6 years isn't a ton of separation. You look at, I think I pulled a stat, like Gretzky in the 80s had 800 more points than the next highest guy, which is insane separation. So, I still think he's got a long ways to go, but by a mile, he's the best player in the world right now, but he's not in that Gretzky Lemieux category yet.
Yeah,
well, let's take a look at this. We've got the 2016-2017 season. He hits 100, wins the scoring race by 11. 2017-2018 season, he's at 108, and that is 6 more than the next, and who was Claude Giroux. And then 2018-2019, he's second in scoring with 116 points behind a Nikita Kucherov, who had 128 points with a stacked Tampa Bay Lightning team, whereas Connor was on a really struggling Oilers team. Then we got the 2019-2020 season. Finished with, McDavid would have hit that 100. He had 97. Draisaitl had 110.
Yeah, he would have hit the 100, though. Yeah. For sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then 87 this season. The next guy behind him is Draisaitl with 71, and then behind Draisaitl is Marner with 64. So he's 23 points ahead of the third place guy.
Yeah, I think honestly he's created that separation. You're evaluating them from the same point of time, but you're not evaluating them at the same level in their career. Patrick Kane was definitely in his peak time for a good hunk of there, and in his elite stage, whereas McDavid was just starting up. So McDavid at his very start to now, where I would argue he's starting to get up to that peak spot, has been able to keep pace with Patrick Kane, who was already an elite scorer at that point. And I think that's something to think about.
Isn't that insane to say he has not peaked yet?
Well, I think
he has peaked. Do you think he has more to give than this season?
Yes.
Maybe if he's got better wingers. Nugent Hopkins has one of the worst underlying stats for a player to play with McDavid ever.
Really?
He is terrible with McDavid.
But they
so much to the point they kept putting him, and I don't get it. Yeah, exactly.
Tried to force it. I think Dominic Cahoon looked a lot better there with Jesse Puljujarvi.
I did too, but then once again, I don't know why, but he is on the third line after that. So
2 games.
But doesn't he play with Draisaitl, who's number 2 in the league in scoring? So it's hard to get any better than that.
Who was Yager's line mate when he was with Pittsburgh?
Lemieux.
So why do you care? And even if he didn't, what was his line mate would have been? Ron Francis, one of the highest scoring players of all time.
No, I'm just saying, do you think his so you think I said do you think he could get better than this? And you said if he had better wingers.
But he's not always with Draisaitl. You see him play Calgary, he's with Draisaitl. He's on and off with Draisaitl. But Draisaitl centered his own line for a good hunk of the year. And even last night, at times, he was often they would go back to it. So
quite often they were split up this year.
But they have been pushing them together right now. As long as they have a competent second line center, there's no reason not to stack them. You have one line that could score you like 4 goals. Like Draisaitl had 4 points last night, and he looked like garbage. Like he was not looking good at all last night. And he walked away with 4 assists. Like, are you kidding me? So if you can do that, you can rock 5 points off a one line. I know there's empty netters, but you can rock 4 or 5 points off of one line. As long as the rest of your lines aren't bleeding, who cares? You're just gonna power them.
And I think Dylan Holloway, the Oilers draft pick, I think he's going to be the solution that they can put McDavid and Draisaitl together full time and just not have to worry about that second, third line, unfortunately. So,
no, I think that's a good point. We're getting pretty close to the end here. We had a new segment today from our own essential quiz meister. Sunjay is going to start a trivia segment here, a Pilon-free trivia segment, and I think it'll be fun. Now, it's your segment, so you explain the rules, you go over.
All right,
we'll listen.
Pretty easy. I don't know if people can see this, but I'm going to ask a question, and Baron and Adam are going to raise their hand on this Zoom meeting. Not like their actual hand, their digital hand. And so I'll ask the question, and then whoever gets it, they'll have to answer it completely correctly, or the other person can answer it and then get the points. So the points are just kind of arbitrary at this point. It's kind of like whose line is it anyways, but I think it'll be kind of fun, and I'll just make up the points as we go along. And trying to think if there's anything else to add to that, but it's based, so I made 3 categories. I put a lot of work and effort into this, so there's 3 categories. And there's one final question, and I'll keep a tally here. And so I got to write Baron, Adam, and see how many points we get. And, this is just for fun and bragging rights and whoever's the best trivia master of all time. So the first category it's called, I came up with clever names too. Actually, only 2 clever names. The first one is I've been everywhere, like the Johnny Cash song, like I've been
everywhere, man. I've been everywhere.
Exactly. So I'll say a player's name, and you're going to have to tell me every team that he played for in the NHL.
Easy.
Okay. You got to get every single one right in order to get the points. Okay. So the first one is Taylor Hall. Oh, that looked like Adam was number 1. So Adam, this is for, we'll say 50 points.
Okay.
Name every team Taylor Hall was with in the NHL.
He was with the Edmonton Oilers, went over to New Jersey in a trade for Adam Larson. Then he went to the Arizona Coyotes for a big playoff push. Then he went to the Buffalo Sabres and was recently traded to the Boston Bruins.
There you go. Adam with the 50 points. All right. So Adam is in the lead. All right.
That's the only lead I'll have this game.
Yeah, no. We'll see how this goes.
The first one was an easy one. It was a softball. I got 2 Oilers fans in there, so I thought I'd give them a little help. So the second one, a little bit more difficult. One Owen Nolan. Owen Nolan. Okay, Adam is ringed in. Let's hear. You don't get penalized for missing any teams.
Okay.
So give it a go.
We got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the San Jose Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the... Ooh, this is where it gets dicey. Was he ever a Nashville Predator? And then... okay, so that's obviously a yes.
No, he was not.
Go back. No, he was a Nordique.
So he's out. He's out for
He was a Nordique.
Right? Like, he's out.
Yeah,
out.
no, yeah, sorry, you're out. So Baron gets the go.
So Nordiques, Sharks, Leafs. Those are the only 3 I could think of, and I'll take a stab, and I'm going to say the Ducks.
No.
Oh, sorry, Avalanche. Avalanche.
Oh, you've ended it.
Yeah, I know I did.
All right. So
I got 3 though. I got 3 at least.
You got 3. Okay, so maybe
I'll because Adam answered wrong first, and then got it right after.
So he went Quebec to Colorado. He played 9 games in Colorado before getting traded to Sandus Ozolinsh. Went to San Jose, then went to Toronto, then went to Phoenix or Arizona, then went to Calgary. How could you forget his 1 year in Calgary? And he finished off 2 years in Minnesota.
Holy
I really
crap.
felt like he played for the Islanders for some reason. I don't know why.
He looked like he would have, eh? I love that guy. He was just a gritty guy. All right, so no points there. This one is the ultimate one. So this one will be worth 100 points.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
One, Jaromir Jagr. Okay, Baron ringed in. Let's see if he can name all the traveling Jagrs.
Rangers, Capitals,
Yep.
Penguins,
Yep.
Devils,
Yep.
Dallas,
Yep.
Calgary.
Yeah.
Oh, am I missing? Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah.
Did I say Dallas Stars? I think I said Dallas Stars already. You played for Dallas.
I think you said them, yeah.
Yeah, you said Dallas.
That's all I got.
So how many did you got? You got 7?
I think so.
All right. There's 9. 9. So can you repeat that so I can see who?
Washington. I said
Yeah.
Washington, Devils,
Yeah.
Dallas,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
New York Rangers,
Yeah.
Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
I said New Jersey Devils, right?
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know who the. Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
Yep.
He got traded to Boston, and I'm missing one. That's my guess. I'm there.
Okay, Adam, do you know who the missing team is?
It's not a Canadian team.
Oh, Calgary was the only Canadian team he played for.
It was the
Can't believe we played with that many teams.
no, it was the Florida Panthers.
Florida Panthers. Baron missed it.
Florida Panthers.
Adam gets the 100 points. He scoops
You're giving
it.
him the points for answering one, and I answered like 7. You can't even prove that he can answer all of them. This is bullshit.
All right, fine.
No. It's
No, sir.
taking my hand down.
That's what you get for
But he never gave me the points for the other one.
but that's what you get for stealing Quebec. Quebec.
At least I could go through the list. You only named one.
Oh my god. I named 2.
One.
Oh, yeah, he got him. He got him. So he got the
Oh
steal.
yeah, with
That's a
Yager.
steal. That's a steal. So the next
Thanks for
one
listening.
is which is more. So I'm gonna give you a list, and you're gonna tell me which one had more. This is the one I didn't come up with a clever name for, but okay.
Which is more?
Who had more points in their career? Gretzky, Korea, Fedorov. But before you answer,
Oh,
Brent Gretzky, Steve Korea, or Fedorov, the unsung brothers of the 3 All-Stars.
Can you say it again? The
Yeah,
three names
who
again?
had more points in the NHL? Brent Gretzky, Steve Korea, or Fedorov? All 3 of the younger unsung brothers in the NHL. Okay,
My
Baron,
guess
put it-
is Korea. I'm gonna go Korea.
I was gonna go Korea too.
Yes, yeah, you got it. Baron gets the 50 points. Brent put up 4 points.
The bridge was super low. I just knew that.
Steve Korea 27 points, and Fedorov 2 points. So Baron gets the 50 there.
I would have not
And he's
guessed
on the
that.
board.
Thanks.
All right, next question. Who had more combined points in the NHL? The Swedish trio of Mats Sundin, Daniel Alfredsson, or Nicholas Lindstrom, or Teemu Selanne, Yuri Kurri, or Saku Koivu, the Finnish trio?
Finish.
Yeah, Finnish trio.
Baron, yeah, Baron answered with the Finnish trio, so
We're just yelling them out now.
I pressed the button.
he had his hand up. Yes.
Oh, okay.
When my screen flips, like I don't know if when you press the reaction button, does it put you in the top left corner?
I have it on gallery view.
Oh, okay. When I put it, when I click it, it flips me over to the corner. So I just
Yeah,
as
like
I
if you-
flipped over, I yelled it.
So if you put the reaction, you'll be on like the main screen thing there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. These things are getting a little testy here, but Baron is clawing back there as a little action as the game show host. All right. So the last one in the category, which is more, rank these points per game in the first 5 years. Okay. Connor McDavid. Now this doesn't include this year. Okay. Connor McDavid's first 5 years, Sidney Crosby, Eric Lindros, and Alexander Ovechkin. Okay, Adam answered first. Adam, least
Eric.
to most.
Okay. Least to most?
Yeah.
Okay. Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Who were the other two?
Ovechkin and Lindros.
Alex Ovechkin, Eric Lindros.
Nope. Baron, do you want to give it a guess?
McDavid, Crosby, and then the opposite for the last two.
Lindros.
Oh.
and Ovechkin.
No. So
Really?
last place is Alexander Ovechkin.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
I thought because of injuries, McDavid would be.
No, this is points per game. So injuries are out.
Fair enough.
So it goes Alexander Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and Eric Lindros was number 1.
I thought Lindros would be number 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Crosby would be ahead of McDavid, but
McDavid and Crosby are super close, and Ovechkin too is super close. So, all right. So this is the last category. Oh, Canada. See, this is a clever name I came up with. So these are all about Canadian teams or Canadians in international play. Okay. So the first question for Oh, Canada is name the 3 goalies selected to the 1996 Team Canada World Cup roster. Okay, Adam has raised his hand. Let's see, Adam, who do you have?
1996.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Okay. Martin Brodeur.
yeah, that's one.
are you telling him or are you just letting him guess his 3?
Patrick
Like, what are
Waugh.
the rules here?
I'll let him guess. I'll say which ones are right. Okay,
Patrick Waugh.
no. So you got Martin Brodeur. So Baron, do you want to? Well, you might as well. See
Is
who
this
else?
96?
96.
Okay, I think it's an obscure goalie. I think it's one of 2 guys. I think it's either Trevor Kidd or it's Jim Carrey. But I think it's going to be Trevor Kidd, Brodeur, and Cujo, I'm going to say.
Baron got 2 out of 3. So it wasn't Trevor Kidd. It
Okay.
Oh,
was-
I thought it was going to be
Was
one of
it
those obscure
Belfour?
ones.
Who was that, Adam?
Was it Belfour?
No, it was kind of an obscure goalie. Even though he did win the Conn Smythe, it was Edmonton legend Bill Ranford.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bill Ranford was number 3, and I think Bruder and Joseph kind of split the duties there for the silver winning team. I guess we can say winning. Okay, this one now is worth another 50 points, and it's
that was a tough one.
this
I
one.
really
You
thought it was someone super obscure.
Well, 96, it could go either way. I don't know why Waugh wasn't there or Belfour. It could have been injuries or whatever. But okay, so
I think it's
since
everywhere.
1998, when the NHL allowed NHL players to participate in the Winter Olympics, name the top 3 Canadians with the most points combined in the Olympics.
Top 3 Canadians points combined, like a line, are you asking? Or just
No, sorry. So like name the top 3 point-producing Canadians in the Winter Olympics since 1998.
I'm going to go with
Baron,
Danny.
raise his hand.
I'm going to go with Danny Heatley, Sidney Crosby, and who would be my number 3? Since 98?
Yeah.
Sakic.
I'll give you, we'll say 25 points for each correct guess. So you get 25. Joe Sakic, he is number 2 with 13. So you get 25 points. Adam, you can get 50 points. Who's number 1 and who's number 3?
Since 98. We're going to say Brad Marchand and Steve Yzerman.
Oh, no. Stevie only played in the 1 in 02. Or he played in 98, I guess.
I probably
no.
shouldn't have worn a Crosby jersey while this
Yeah.
thing occurred, hey? Because I feel like that's where it's going. Like Crosby is legitimately the one guy who's played in 2 Olympics.
Was Marchand?
Nope. So nope. So number 1, Jerome McGinley with 14.
Yes.
He played in 3. Joe Sakic, number 2 with 13. And number 3, out of the blue, Shea Weber with 12.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I honestly thought it was like, I think Heatley did for like World Cups or like those tournaments because he was always on Atlanta and teams like that. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, like the World Championships, I bet you he'd be up there for sure.
He had like a dominant year, Danny Heatley, one year in there.
Oh yeah,
I think just too slow for regular hockey.
No worries. All right, so next one's worth 50 points, and it is who scored the game-winning goal in the 2014 Olympic gold medal game for Team Canada to beat Sweden? Okay, Adam raised his hand.
Actually, I think I know who this one is. I do.
The game-winning goal?
I know who this is. Oh.
It was Drew Doughty.
Nope.
It was a slap shot off the blue line.
I want to go.
No,
Chris
was
Kunitz.
it?
It's
Was
Chris
it Drew
Kunitz.
Doughty?
Is it Chris Kunitz?
No, he got the third goal. It was Jonathan Taves.
He
Jonathan
doesn't play
Taves.
anymore.
All
Actually,
right, so
rumor is he'll be back next year, so that's good.
I hope so. I missed the
I
guy.
do too. Yeah.
All right, so Adam is ahead by 25 points heading into the final question, which is worth 26 points coincidentally.
Oh, this is so stressful.
And we're going to play Price is Right rules, so closest without going over will win. Okay. In 1987, the Canada Cup, Gretzky and Lemieux played together for the first and only time in competitive hockey. What were their combined points in those 9 games? Okay, so you write it down, and it's closest without going over, so you can't be like, Baron can't be like, oh, one point.
Do you want me to
That's
write
what I
it
was
down?
going to do. That was my strategy.
Yeah.
See if I have a pen.
7 games?
9 games, what were their combined points for Gretzky and Lemieux playing together?
9 games.
All right.
All right. Do you guys have an answer? I gotta do like Final Jeopardy music. Like
I'll do it in bigger. I'll do it in bigger number here.
Oh,
so
yeah. I guess I'll do it in bigger.
do 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 do. All right, and you got to answer in the form of a question somehow.
I got this.
All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right.
I am.
Okay, Baron can go first.
I'll just do it at the same time.
All right, you got it. 1, 2, 3.
52.
27.
27. Oh, Adam wins because he did not go over. The correct answer was 39.
I was gonna guess 36, and I was like, I bet you they went way over.
Gretzky put up 21 points in 9 games, ridiculous, and Mario only put up 18 in 9 games only to finish second on the team in scoring. So Adam,
Better?
Adam is your trivia king right now.
Thank you. I honestly would never have ever thought I would beat any of you at hockey trivia.
I feel like Pilon would have slaughtered us both.
Well, we're joking. Like, okay, first question: how many Stanley Cup Finals have the Leafs made in the last 50 years? That's why Pilon didn't join us.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, well, that's sweet. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
Hopefully
good,
the
man.
audience had fun.
Yeah, and he already made like a second segment video, so we don't even have to, like worry about it.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. Well, that wraps up another weekly episode of Delayed Offside. Like, click, subscribe. Pay attention. We're heading towards the playoffs here, so hopefully, as things ramp up, a little more stuff rolls into like the hockey world here. It just feels like we're in garbage time, and I think that part of it sucks. So we'll get to talk about some other the weird things that occur and some of the other fun stuff outside of maybe the regular season. So that's at least a bonus for you. Like I said, feel free to share the podcast. Feel free to ask questions, add them in comments, and as always, thanks for listening. I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Sunjay.
Thanks for listening to Delayed Offside. Take care. Keep fit. Have fun.